Right now, on to the point. Former Vice President Kamala Harris making her decision. She will not be running for governor in 2026. Her reasons and what it means for candidates already in the race. Plus proposals to change California's charter schools. Tonight, following an ABC 10 investigation, what state lawmakers are looking to do.
The California Air Resources Board is slapped with another lawsuit in regards to one of its controversial programs. Hear details about the lawsuit and how CARB is responding.
And a new executive order from Governor Newsom aimed at saving lives. The state's plan to tackle rising suicide rates among young men and boys.
Good evening. As always, thank you so much for joining us on To The Point. I'm Alex Bell. And well, the speculation's over. Now we know former Vice President Kamala Harris will not be running for California governor. Harris made the announcement just this morning, adding that she's leaving open the possibility of running for president in 2028. And it's not known when she will make that decision, but she did release a statement today saying in part, quote, "Over the past 6 months, I have spent time reflecting on this moment in our nation's history and the best way for me to continue fighting for the American people and advancing the values and ideals I hold dear." And Nancy Pelosi speaking out today about Harris's decision. Take a listen.
Well, I'm sure that I support any decision that she made in terms of running for governor in California. And now we're off to a gubernatorial race. We have many great candidates, one in particular, Lenny Sakopoulos, whom I support. But unless if Kamala was not running, whatever she decides to do.
So now the race to replace Governor Newsom in 2026 is wide open. The Democratic field includes former Los Angeles Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa, former State Controller Betty Yee, Lieutenant Governor Eleni Kounalakis, former U.S. Congressmember Katie Porter, and former State Senate Leader Tony Atkins, as well as former Health Secretary Javier Becerra and State Superintendent of Schools Tony Thurmond. And on the Republican side, already in the race is Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco, British native and former Fox commentator Steve Hilton, business consultant Sharifa Hardy, farmer Leo Zaki, entrepreneur and affordable housing advocate Brandon Jones. And I also want to mention, we have a streaming special that is up right now on our ABC 10 Plus TV streaming app because it is a pivotal period for California Democrats. And the ABC 10 team spent, we recently traveled to the Democratic State Party convention where all eyes are on the 2026 elections, including the big race for the governor. The team interviewed the top 7 Democratic contenders to replace Governor Newsom, and you can find those interviews and a whole lot more on our ABC 10 Plus TV streaming app. Just look for California Dems on the home screen. Well, the California Air Resources Board is under fire again, and tonight a coalition of nonprofit groups have filed a brand new lawsuit. The group claims that the state's low-carbon fuel standard encourages major polluters to continue harming the environment. So I want to bring in ABC 10's Jeannie Nguyen, who is here to give us the details on the lawsuit and also the response from the state. Right, Jeannie?
Yes, Alex, this is the second time CARB has been sued in less than a year in regards to the recent amendments made to the LCFS. The nonprofit Food and Water Watch say the state's program gives incentives to big factory farms to continue to produce harmful biogas. But CARB believes it's doing good for the state.
We are suing the California Air Resources Board for injuring communities in California and across the country by encouraging massive factory farms.
In this lawsuit filed last Friday, a group of nonprofits, including Food and Water Watch, are suing the California Air Resources Board, or CARB, in regards to its low-carbon fuel standard program.
By encouraging and incentivizing the largest factory farms to pollute even more than they already do through the state's low-carbon fuel standard program. And this really is a sad story because the LCFS was adopted with the intent of improving environmental conditions and protecting communities.
The lawsuit claims the program is incentivizing big factory farms to keep polluting, rewarding them for producing biogas, a process the group argues has been contaminating the air for years. CARB's updated LCFS rules just went into effect on July 1st, aiming to cut greenhouse gas emissions and let polluters offset their emissions by buying credits. A CARB spokesperson tells ABC 10 in part, the LCFS provides incentives to reduce fossil fuels, which can cause air pollution, adding there will be no comment on any pending or potential litigation.
I would agree that's an intent of the low carbon fuel standard. Unfortunately, that isn't happening when we're talking about factory farm gas.
It comes as CARB's LCFS program is being heavily criticized for other reasons, especially its potential impacts on gas prices.
Gas prices in California can get up to $8.43 a gallon by December of 2026. That's only 18 months from now. That's not very long. Californians can't afford $8.43 a gallon gasoline.
Senator Brian Jones has requested an audit into CARB and is demanding transparency, oversight, and accountability. According to AAA, the average cost of gas in the state last month was $4.59 and is now currently $4.47.
And a CARB spokesperson tells me that despite claims the LCFS would increase gas prices, that is nowhere to be seen, and that noise around this program is confusing. But the facts show that it is just noise. Alex.
All right, Janie, thank you for the update. Governor Gavin Newsom signed a bill today that increases penalties for adults who solicit minors for sex. Assembly Bill 379 increases charges for adults soliciting sex from 16 and 17-year-olds. Felony charges also apply when the offender is at least 3 years older than the minor. If the age gap is smaller, the offense remains a misdemeanor. The bill also creates a state grant program to assist district attorneys in prosecuting sex trafficking crimes. And there are mixed emotions tonight after the Sacramento City Council voted to ban camping right outside of City Hall. It reverses a policy previously allowing overnight sleeping on the grounds. Council member Phil Pluckybaum voted for the ban. He says allowing people to sleep where they want isn't going to help them in the long run. And moving forward, people who were staying there will now be approached by the Department of Community Response. They will be offering free services and helping them find housing if they would like it. But advocates against the ordinance say they would rather see something that addresses a lack of permanent housing. All right, a few technical difficulties there, but I do want to mention that it's not clear when the city will start enforcing the new ordinance, but people will be notified at about a month before it actually happens, so it's something we'll continue to follow. And Governor Newsom signed an executive order focused on suicide prevention and mental health, specifically in young men and boys. The order directs a statewide response to improve mental health for this part of the population and reduce the stigma that's attached to it. The order strengthens mental health support through the California Health and Human Services Agency, addresses California's crisis of loneliness in young men, and offers pathways to work, education, and support.
The executive order recognizes that we need a whole person approach, not just treating mental illness, but also investing in belonging, opportunity, and prevention.
Governor Newsom said too many young men and boys are suffering and also disconnected. This action is about turning all of that around. Still ahead on To the Point, waves from yesterday's massive earthquake in Russia reach as far as Hawaii. Now new evacuations are underway in another part of the world. We'll be taking a look. Plus, no relief from the Fed as interest rates hold steady, what it means for your loans and credit cards, and how you could still make some money.
We were in the 80s this afternoon. Tomorrow, though, we're back near seasonal in the low to middle 90s across the valley, and that's where we stay for the rest of this week. Forecast after the break.
But first, another headlines tonight. Investigative hearings began today for the mid-air crash between a passenger plane and a military helicopter in Washington, D.C. The NTSB released thousands of pages of evidence, including data from the plane's cockpit voice recorder. The agency also says the helicopter was flying higher than it should have. 67 people died in the crash. More than 100 JCPenney stores have been sold, including the locations at Arden Fair Mall and in Fairfield. A Boston-based private equity firm bought the stores for nearly $1 billion. The sale comes about 5 years after the retailer filed for bankruptcy, and all stores will remain open. And thousands of Ozzy Osbourne fans honored the late singer-songwriter today in his hometown of Birmingham, England. Osbourne died last week at the age of 76. His wife Sharon and their children, Jack and Kelly, were on hand as the hearse carrying Osbourne's coffin drove through the area.
Welcome back in. Yesterday's 8.8 magnitude earthquake is still making waves. This is video from Hawaii last night of tsunami water spilling into a parking lot at a boat harbor on Oahu's North Shore. The worst part appears to have passed for many areas in the United States, but tsunami evacuations are now ordered in South America. I want to get things over to meteorologist Brendan Minchef because you're tracking the impacts here in California, right?
Yeah, and like you said, they're pretty much over for most of us. The threat has come and gone. The only county that still has a tsunami advisory on it is Del Norte County in the far northern part of the state. Increased wave heights are still being observed, and we're going to see some strong currents as well. The tsunami advisory still in effect this evening for places like Crescent City, which also saw the largest tsunami waves at about 4 feet. The rest of the state ranged from just a few inches to about 3 feet. Let's shift over to weather now and talk about radar and satellite. There's a little thunderstorm near 395 south of Tahoe, but most of the activity has been in the northern part of the state, and that's where we have a severe thunderstorm warning right now up in Trinity, along with a flash flood warning at this hour. And we've even got a dust storm warning in the western part of Nevada along Interstate 80. So lots going on radar, but not a lot of it necessarily in our area. Made it to 88 today in Sacramento, 93 Stockton, 92 in Modesto. It's a little below normal for the time of year, cooler than yesterday, but it is just a one-day dip in temperatures. This evening, pretty nice, 85 right now, 88 Stockton, 91 Modesto, 70 in Truckee and South Lake Tahoe. In the valley, we'll be in the mid-70s about the time we get to 8 o'clock, and then 60s by 10 o'clock, and we'll fall through the 60s overnight and start tomorrow in the upper 50s across much of the valley. Cool and mostly clear, but like I said, today's temperatures were just a one-day drop because we are back in the low to mid-90s tomorrow. Seasonal, though, that's where we'd expect to be for the end of July. And in addition to some warmer temperatures, we're going to have another chance for some thunder. Tonight, though, we're going to keep some thunderstorm chances in the northeastern part of the state along 395 through about midnight. And then tomorrow afternoon, some pop-up showers and thunderstorms. For the most part, I believe north of Tahoe, similar to today. But if you're going to be in the Tahoe region tomorrow, don't be surprised if there is a quick passing shower or a weaker storm. Temperatures in the 90s for the rest of this week, near 90 to start next week, and mid-90s for the first week of August. Alex.
All right, Brendan, thanks. Right after the break, a 2-year ABC 10 investigation. Lawmakers are responding to failures uncovered at one of California's largest charter schools. A 2-year ABC 10 investigation into one of California's largest charter schools is now leading to calls for statewide change. Investigative reporter Andy Judson has been following the fallout and joins us live in studio right now.
Yeah, Alex, our reporting revealed serious failures at Highlands Community Charter and Technical Schools, from misreported attendance to misusing millions in public funds. Now, 2 state lawmakers are pushing for change, proposing laws that could rein in what critics say is a lawless system.
Yeah, thank God for the whistleblowers.
That's the takeaway from California Assemblymember Al Murasuchi, reacting to the findings of a state audit he and 3 other lawmakers called for after ABC 10's investigation into Highlands Community Charter and Technical Schools.
The state audit found that over $180 million was inappropriately funded.
Cases like Highlands are not alone. In 2021, the charter school A3 used Little League rosters, falsely claiming players were students.
Where a Superior Court found that they had defrauded California taxpayers of over $400 million.
That's why Murasuchi proposed Assembly Bill 84.
A lot of people don't understand that charter schools are privately operated with public dollars. And so as long as they're receiving public dollars, we need to hold them accountable.
Assembly Bill 84 aims to strengthen oversight of charter schools in several key ways. It would expand audit requirements, tighten deadlines, and improve how student data is tracked. It also ensures educators are properly credentialed and thoroughly vetted. And perhaps most significantly, it would create a new governor-appointed role, an Education Inspector General, tasked with preventing and detecting fraud statewide.
These are taxpayer dollars, these are public education dollars, and we want to make sure that it's spent for those purposes.
But he's not the only one proposing a bill about charter schools.
There are amazing charter schools.
In the Senate, Senator Angelique Ashby introduced Senate Bill 414.
There are also some that have shown they could have used a little more oversight.
Senate Bill 414 would also raise the bar for auditing standards, requiring auditors to complete specialized training. It also calls for background checks on staff and vendors, more fiscal oversight, and faster investigations when fraud is suspected at a charter school.
And making sure that every dollar, that it appropriately lands in the classrooms.
So what sets these 2 bills apart? Murasuchi's bill relies on input from the Fiscal Crisis Management and Assistance Team,
which is basically good government, nonpartisan entities that made independent recommendations for how to reform and try to avoid this kind of fraudulent activity. Our bill incorporates all of the recommendations. The Senate bill incorporates just some of them.
Ashby's bill relies on findings from audits from the Legislative Analyst's Office, the Comptroller, and the California Charter Authorizer. She also argues her bill would not cost as much as she's not proposing a new government position.
So our solution is a little bit easier to implement, and 84 has a little bit more expensive solution.
Charter schools were designed to offer flexibility, especially for students who might not fit into traditional public school settings. Now, efforts to increase oversight are facing some pushback, with critics arguing it could undermine the very independence these schools were built on.
We absolutely oppose this bill.
Critics of AB 84 call it a sledgehammer when only a scalpel would do.
We don't want to punish, good actors. We just want to go after the bad actors.
While critics of SB 414 say it does not go far enough.
I don't agree that we don't have strong measures in there.
One big difference is who supports each bill.
414 tries to have a broader scope of engagement with more people, more interested parties.
Like the California Charter Schools Association, which sponsors Senate Bill 414 but opposes Assembly Bill 84. ABC 10 reached out to the association for comment. They did not respond. Many charter advocates have followed this motto, pushing against AB 84.
Fantastic.
While others, including some whistleblowers at Highlands and its oversight agency, Twin Rivers Unified, support AB 84.
I was a whistleblower on fiscal fraud. I strongly support AB 84.
And I strongly support AB 84.
Before the entire Highlands board resigned, they approved $90,000 to hire a lobbyist to, in part, support SB 414 and oppose AB 84. We asked the lawmakers about this.
I think the timing is very suspicious that now that they're hiring lobbyists that are trying to kill my bill, that's trying to strengthen the oversight that I believe we need in order to make sure that we don't have more Highlands. Public dollars should not be used on lobbying, period.
Well, first of all, a lot of people support 414 that have nothing to do with Highlands. 414 is not a Highlands-specific bill. Highlands is a charter school. It is in this region. It is a school that has made some egregious mistakes and is a perfect example of why we need a bill like Senate Bill 414.
We also asked Jonathan Raymond, Highlands' new executive director.
If you're turning things around here, why spend public funds to oppose legislation that's aimed at increasing oversight?
Yeah, so Andy, it's about us bringing in expertise and knowledge. We know we have government officials, we have regulators that, we've got to get in front of, and we have to tell our story. And it's not about us opposing or supporting legislation. We're about surviving and telling the Highlands story and why it's so important to keep this school open.
After our interview, Highlands sent a statement saying their lobbyist will focus on partnerships and coalition, and that engaging in legislative issues is not their focus at this time. Charter schools were meant to offer choice, but these bills ask, who's watching the choices being made with public money?
Although the Assembly and Senate bills are very similar, I asked Senator Ashby why they weren't introduced as a joint effort with Assemblymember Muasucci in the first place. She explained the bills started off quite different, but over time they've moved closer together and said there is a real possibility they could eventually merge. Alex?
All right, Andy, thank you. Well, the Federal Reserve announced today that they will not lower interest rates, which is now between 4.25% and 4.5%. And this means it will continue to cost consumers more to borrow money for things like a mortgage, car payments, and even credit card debt, despite mounting criticism from President Trump. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell says he's taking a wait-and-see approach, holding out to see how tariffs affect inflation.
Higher tariffs have begun to show through more clearly to prices of some goods, but their overall effects on economic activity and inflation remain to be seen.
And there is some good news. When interest rates are high, many banks will offer higher annual percentage yields on savings accounts, which means that you can grow your money a little bit faster. Right after the break, a popular local restaurant says goodbye. The reason behind the closure of Chando's Tacos. Before we go, we have an update to a story that we just brought you yesterday about the closure of a popular local restaurant called Chando's Tacos. Today, we learned more about why they decided to close all of their locations. The restaurant's owner shared a statement that says in part, quote, "After many years of service and dedication, we have made the difficult decision to close our locations in the city of Sacramento. This closure is due to economic factors and circumstances beyond our control that have deeply impacted the restaurant industry." As always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, you can always download our free ABC 10 Plus TV streaming app. I'll see you later. Have a great night.